Good afternoon. My name is Peter Kay. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Juice Press, a raw juice, food, and wellness company. We are pleased to be starting our second year as Cornell Institute for Food Systems Industry Partner. We are now going to take a look at two case studies in food regionalization. The value of the systems approach is often that it provides insight that may otherwise be counterintuitive. Miguel Gomez, Associate Professor at the Dyson School of Applied Economics and Management at Cornell University, has an example to share with us that shows how a system approach can be used to assess strategies such as regionalization. Please welcome Miguel as he shares this.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and it's a pleasure to be here. Just talking, Mike and Marina speaking, sometimes I am jealous because over the years, the more I work with scientists, I prefer to understand the behavior of animals and of insects than of consumers. Consumers are different. So sometimes it doesn't make sense. How do I? Yes? Okay. So thank you. So thank you for this opportunity to talk and to share with my friend Charles Nicholson work that we have been doing over the past 5 years on understanding regional and local food systems. And I'm going to talk about broccoli in this case because we are just finishing a 5-year project, and there are some interesting lessons from what I have learned about broccoli that I think are relevant for other fruits and vegetables in the East Coast. And the question is regionalization of broccoli value chains a good strategy for the East Coast and the Northeast? So the answer to this is, the main message I want you to take here is that when I started this project, I was very skeptical about this question, and that's why they bring us economists to try to understand this. And I think production is there, and I think the consumer has strong interest on East Coast broccoli production. To my surprise, we are quite competitive, but we are lacking two things. So one, which has been resolved over these 5 years, that there are very promising varieties that adapt very well to conditions in the East Coast. That's solved. But I think the big challenge will be who is willing to take the risk to invest in the infrastructure necessary to start. And it's risky. There is a lot of interest in developing strong infrastructure for this type of regional chain, as I'm going to show you in a minute. But who takes the risk first? And second, you see, from production point of view, we are quite there. We are a little bit high in costs, but if you add transportation costs from long distances, we are there. Consumers are willing to pay, and our experiments show that they really like the taste of a fresher broccoli. But the problem is that if we want to grow this industry, we have to forget about direct channels. It has to be through supermarkets and through food service operators. And the broccoli buyer in particular is quite constrained to have flexibility to accept a regionally grown broccoli unless it is equal in every single attribute to the product that is coming from California, Arizona, or Mexico. So that's the brief message. So the opportunities are, is that we can have a year-round broccoli industry from Florida to Maine, all year-round availability in the East Coast, if we have the right variety. Opportunities is to reduce transportation costs, which are about 10 to 15%, bringing the product from the West Coast. Reduce carbon footprint is on demand from industry and policies and consumers' points of view. Crop diversification may be useful for growers in the East Coast, and locally grown produce is in demand. In addition to that, a lack of prospect of water scarcity in California long term add more incentives to try to diversify the supply base for vegetables, in this case broccoli. And you see 80%, 85% of the broccoli that is coming today to the East Coast comes from California and Arizona. Okay? So the idea is that if we have the right products and the right supply chain, we can increase the share of broccoli in the East Coast that is produced in the East Coast and consumed in the East Coast. But the problem is, this is an Eastern standard variety, and I don't know if Thomas is here. I borrowed this from Thomas Björkman. This is an Eastern variety. It looks more like a cauliflower, kind of, in its shape. And this is one of the Cornell breeding lines that the group of plant breeders have identified during this period. So to realize the opportunity of that industry, so we need several things in place. And again, I am glad to talk about this in this audience because this requires a system approach to put all the pieces together. So we need the breeding varieties with the right traits. We need regional trials to work on adaptation to the different microclimates in the East. We need seed companies willing to produce and release seed. We need production and marketing. We need networks of growers that like broccoli, that see in broccoli a good opportunity. We need a very efficient supply chain, and we need the retail and consumer acceptance of the industry. So we're just going to show you this past 5 years realizing the opportunity from plant breeding selection to trials, you see, to supply chain, to advertising and attention in New York, broccoli. I think this is nice, and I hope you appreciate the next one, Brooklyn. Yeah? So marketing is important as well. But I love this one, the attention by Kel, which is true. So I was leading the economic component on this, and as I mentioned, I was quite skeptical when I started because I say no way that we can compete with the efficiency, and not only in the West Coast they are good producers, but they are good marketers in vegetables. So can we compete, and would retailers, consumers accept? So we have done several tasks from assessing cost of pre-harvest, post-harvest, supply chain of distribution system, etc. Now what happened here? Okay, it's not moving. I don't think you want to install. No, I didn't. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. So the task from the economic team was basically to assess cost efficiency and identify what would be a cost minimizing supply chain structure if the industry takes off. Are consumers also willing to buy and to pay for new broccoli varieties? So I'm going to show you basically the results from the farm to consumers, and then I'm going to end with what I told you at the beginning. So we learned, we did careful studies on cost of production in several regions. I'm showing you some of them here: South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and we compare to California. And this is the per box total production costs. So we see that even in New York, where we have lots of variability in production, in production and post-harvest handling, we see that we can be competitive to start with. If you have a good product, you can compete. Now, the problem is, and we knew this at the beginning of the project, is the quality consistency and the fact that some of the members of our group were convinced that, well, consumers will like something that is different than California. No, we have to produce broccoli that looks exactly or similar to the broccoli that is coming from the West Coast, but it has to be the fact that it's regional or locally grown will be a plus. We did lots of experiments in Ithaca, New York, in South Carolina, in Florida, etc. Here is an example. You see the different types of broccoli, our graduate research assistants, and we come in a controlled environment. We put them to the side to rate the taste and to provide a willingness to pay for the broccoli. So here is one of the sessions. These are the two of the new lines. You see that they are a little bit different in colors, in shape, and the center one is the California one. So what did we learn from these experiments? And I'm showing you kind of the average. In terms of appearance, the California one, which is the middle one, always got the better scores. Yeah? But in terms of taste, we see that, that some of our lines did slightly better than the California variety. And we simulated all the post-harvest distribution transport that will happen in the East Coast for the local, for varieties A and C. So willingness to pay and controlling for information, controlling for telling them the origin. So this is with no information. Basically, we found no difference on willingness to pay for a pound of broccoli from the three varieties. So it was important because even without the information, people will buy the new varieties that we will get in. Second, but when we give them information about the origin, they were more likely to buy the East Coast variety. So that was very encouraging because we have done this over and over, and there is a willingness to buy, to pay. We also did a study on the supply chain. Can we be competitive in the supply chain? And we study some localization effects of localization. And I'm going to show you the basic results. We did this for several scenarios, that we have a 15% acreage increase in the East Coast, 30% and double, which is the optimistic. The most likely, which actually the one that is happening, is that today we have an increase of 30% of broccoli acres in the East Coast relative to 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So I'm going to show you how these simulations are telling us under the 30% scenario how total costs change. Total costs basically actually improve as Eastern broccoli gets more share in the market. Although we go above, production costs do not change significantly, only slightly, but transportation costs really decrease, particularly in the summer, where we see tremendous opportunities for regional broccoli to come in, and to some extent in the fall. In terms of miles, we see that an increase of 30% of the East Coast industry will mean a 4% decrease in the miles traveled by product from farm to table. So that is good, because that's a point in marketing. And this is the new Eastern share, which increases from 18 to 24%, but mostly in the summer and in the fall seasons, where we see the highest opportunity for East Coast broccoli. So in terms of, so this is, I'm going to skip this because it's the same as we mentioned before. The thing that I want to highlight here is that this change will also cause a change in flows of product. So for example, in New York City, in a given season, this is where we are getting our broccoli. So how if we have 30% more broccoli, less is going to come from California, more from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and less from Maryland and Maine. This is the main message. Same for Philadelphia. Philadelphia, for example, we see that Pennsylvania has tremendous potential for broccoli. Okay? So to finish, closing comments, success of an East Coast broccoli. What we see is that all the elements are there from production, supply chain, and and consumer, but the challenge is still to keep the quality consistent. So there is a lot of work in breeding to do, but it's also to identify appropriate business models for integration of local broccoli and who is willing to take the risk to invest in developing the infrastructure. Is it the private sector, private public, retailers, is it the packer shippers or the growers? So with that, I leave to Chuck to continue with a very similar case with dairy.
Any questions for Miguel?
Oh. At the end?
Yes.
Miguel, but a very interesting study. I'm curious. Do you understand the consumer reasons for the taste difference? What do consumers really get? Was it freshness or specific sensory attributes?
It has to do with the taste. Yes, the question from Nick was, what was the attribute that made the difference for the taste rating? It was the texture, it was pressure, but it had also a little bit more of sugar. It was a little bit sweeter. Our colleague in Tennessee did all the analysis. I don't have them in my head, but basically those were the two main attributes regarding the composition of the product.
I'm just curious, if you plant more broccoli, you indicated a change in flow from California, but certainly within New York, what would broccoli replace? If presumably it would replace some other commodity.
You didn't see New York here as an implicit supply. Problem in New York is that our problem. Our farmers are very happy with cabbage, which is the natural substitute or there are possibilities to do it, but we need to develop the network to be able to make this broccoli production more attractive to growers. So they are very good in what they are doing. So it takes a little bit of education or work on this diversification of production.
Any other questions